Roughly a week passed, and the Saturday of that week saw Trey and myself hanging out at the mall. We visited a few stores and made some comments about the various clothing that we saw people wearing before we stepped across a couple and a young child that could be inferred as belonging to them. The man was wearing a set of gold earrings, had a mohawk that was an unnatural color of red, and was wearing baggy clothing with sandals. The mother was wearing an orange t-shirt, black pants, and was devoid of anything physical that would stand out to me as odd. The man was walking ahead of the young boy, while the mother was holding the boy's hand. They walked right past us when their exchange began. "You could always hold your son's hand," she told him. "I already did," he said. "Lay off me." "You never tried doing anything with him." "Maybe because I didn't want him." "Then why don't you go away?" "I'm not getting put on no child support. I came over your house to smash, and that ain't about to happen to me in no jail." The two continued walking. The woman appeared to have given up on her endeavor of trying to tell the man what to do. "Did you hear any of that?" I asked Trey. "Yeah. He admitted in public that the only reason he has a child was because of an accident. And the only reason he stays around is to not go to jail for child support." "Yeah, there are a lot of guys that way." Evidently. That last comment was meant to mirror his thoughts. We continued our dialogue when we were going up the escalator that was just a few inches away from us during our hearing of the couple's quarrel. "There are a few more things I haven't told you about when it comes to my frustrations," I said. "So that's the stuff having to do with the women, right?" he asked. "Yes." I looked around and noticed a woman sitting with a boy that was probably either 3 or 4 years old. He was eating some meal she was eating some meal she had prepared herself and staring forward while the child placed his tongue to the table they were sitting at. Trey noticed my persistent view of the pair and looked in the same direction. I tapped him on the shoulder and looked over to them. Again, the back of the woman's head being the first thing he locked eyes on before seeing the actions of the kid she was with. "That's pretty gross," Trey said. "What's gross is how he's been doing it for that long without her noticing. Do you think you might be too hard on her?" I observed that the boy was smiling while the mother to our woman, their child giver, tilted her head into the plate. "No," I said. "Even if she doesn't see it, which is hard for me to believe as she's sitting right next to him, the kid should know better than to place his tongue on something nasty. That can be learned at any age that he's old enough to speak at." The two of us walked further into the food hall, me throwing my head around while checking out some of the various restaurants that were there. "Do you remember that time Ann told me about the population?" I asked Trey, who nodded his head. As stupid as her saying that was, it at least helped to frame her as a person who was concerned about something greater than herself in the future. I placed my hands in front of him and opened one hand while holding a finger up on the other. 6 months, I told him. According to her, it's been 6 months since she had a job. She's not in school. Her entire life is laying up on her parents' dime, hanging out with her buddies, and posting provocative pictures on Instagram. "So what's the connection?" Trey asked. "You can't tell me that you're so worried about the population getting too big, or something else happening in the future, when your entire life, whether it's having sex with multiple guys you're not even dating, or posting online while not having a job or being in school, demonstrates that all you do is live in the moment." "But if she isn't thinking long term about some things, then how come she brings up the world population? That's her scapegoat." I breathed a sigh. "I can believe she definitely does not want to procreate with anybody," I told him. "But she told me at one point that she'd be open to having one, then threw in some line about how she wouldn't do it until she was in her mid-30s. At least she was honest about when she could first see herself doing it. Do you remember her wedding proposal? How she told me she would give me 2 kids if I spent some hefty amount of dollars on an extravagant wedding? I actually forgot about that. I didn't. That was the first showing of her being full of crap. Because she wanted to trade in what you guys wanted. Because she made procreating seem as though it was something she would do under no circumstances and then dialed it back. Two of us moved to a table and sat across from each other. "Let me make sure I'm getting this right," Trey said. "You want to date so badly so you can have a family at one point?" "Yes." "Then that's why you always stare at these parents and couples every time we come in here." "That's correct. In the case of some of these parents, I think I could do a better job, and I feel I have the patience to tolerate certain behaviors and show any that I would have the right things that could put he or she on track to actually have a decent existence." "Sounds honorable. You said some stuff like that to me before." But I've got to ask, wouldn't you still be able to do this when you're 30 or 40? Technically, but just as Rivka said, I might actually change my mind before later on. So I want to get involved with it while I want to be involved. The back and forth ceased for a few moments when I turned my eyes from him to view some of the people walking past us. There was a steady wave of men that were going into their gender's bathroom, and that wasn't exactly something I wanted to know much more about. So I looked away and saw a more noteworthy subject. A woman that looked to be in her late teens to early 20s walked past the two of us at a slow pace. Though unaccompanied by anyone physically, she had her ear to a cell phone. The audio was loud enough for us to faintly hear the words of the other person. I gave her everything, and all she can do is divorce me. After I say that we wouldn't have been a couple after those 6 months if she didn't get knocked up, the male voice vaguely stated. The woman was wearing a green top with a pair of dark blue shorts that didn't even reach the midsection of her thighs. If they had been a few inches shorter, she probably would have been contacted by some of the authorities there for indecent exposure. The shoes she had on were similar to sandals, but had heels that were about half the length of my arms and could make a person appear to be at least 3 inches taller than they actually were, while the man continued to exclaim angrily about what appeared to be his wife wanting to leave him. I could see the woman's left hand entering her shorts and her hand seemingly reaching below her stomach. She walked into the bathroom right after this, which had been designed for female shoppers and was inches away from the male counterpart. Unbelievable, I said. She was touching herself, Trey stated. Touching herself while walking through a mall while barely wearing any clothes on and during talking to a guy that was having his relationship ruined. I shook my head. She was getting turned on by his misery. Sure sounds like it, Trey said. That was so nasty and makes me just want to leave here as soon as we can. At least it's over now. No, our viewing of it is over. That's still going on in that bathroom. I wouldn't be surprised if she starts moaning in there. I looked at the women's bathroom door. The two of us engaged in small talk for a few moments before mutually deciding to leave. Me sitting in the passenger seat of Trey's car while he pulled out of the parking lot. There was a repeated effort on his end to give me a stare while he was operating the vehicle. Something on your mind, he asked. Yep, that woman, I answered. What about her? This is another way of trying everything together. This is another way of tying everything together. It's a woman like that, one who derives off misery and cares little for public conduct, who just has to spread her legs and she can have a baby. Whereas a guy that tries preparing himself for fatherhood has to woo one of them with various tricks to get that opportunity, or be demoted to having to adopt someone else's, or seek out a surrogate that he won't be able to pay until he's 30. Trey drove us down a few more streets that would have led to my house, and then he parked in the driveway of a fast food restaurant. There were a few cars around there, and I could see the inside of the restaurant was busy, packed with small children running around and various adults eating food amongst them, while some stood in line. So is there a reason you parked us out here? I asked him. Well, you thought we were going to go back to your house, Trey said. That is true. I didn't want to go back because that would make me a square. I didn't realize going home was square behavior. That's correct. Oh yeah, doing anything with consistency that is conducive to stability is square behavior. The two of us shared a brief laugh. I was surprised by myself in being able to put those words together in a sentence that summed up the matter. I looked into his eyes while this mutual giggling was going on and turned away to look at the people inside the restaurant. I didn't feel the same sense of annoyance I had in seeing the children run around as they had been before I laughed. It was kind of telling to notice such a contrast to my own behavior based off of who was around me. But really, tell me about how things have gone this past week. Have you gotten over Shannon? He asked. I think so. I've resigned myself to her and not trying to contact me again. I think she was dumb to give you her number when she was with another guy. I would consider that dumb too, but you know that for women, no matter how ridiculous or insane they act, there's always a relative ease in attracting men. Not all of them. Enough of them. Sometimes I wonder what they would feel being told that they're lesbians or they can't attract a man, or if they had to run the risk of actually being declined by a majority of the guys they speak with. Don't start turning sexist on me, he said. I'm not. I'm just saying that for as long as I can remember, I've always heard about the romantic struggles of men and the various games that we've had to play to entice a woman. It's never the other way around. Life isn't fair. That I know. There he went expressing a view that was countering my own, and there I was not feeling offended or bothered by him having a different opinion. He was one of probably two people that I could do that with. After we had some more small talk, we headed back to my house. It was shortly before 3 p.m. that we returned. I opened the front door, allowing him in. My mother was standing in the hallway for some reason, had her hands placed against her back in a pose that reminded me of the late Tupac Shakur. "This is the part where you ask me if I'm still down?" I said to her. Trey giggled right after. My mother shook her head, though retained a smile. "That's not it at all," she told me. "I remember a young man that not so long ago talked badly about his family." "What bad things did he say about them?" "That they would be useless to him in his quest for true love, his desire to date and meet someone," she answered. I stared at her and shifted my eyes to look into the den. The part of the hallway from which I was standing did not allow me to see anything apart from the shelves of the den, but I was able to hear the sound of someone shifting their behind on the couch. I could faintly hear my siblings running around the other part of the hallway, and with the television in my parents' room being audible, I knew my father was in there. I had never once heard that television when at least one of them was not present. It was impossible for me to imagine that my mother would have someone over the house and not try to speak to them or keep them company until whatever they came for had been satisfied. "What did you do?" I asked her. "Now you're catching on." She took my hand. "Where are we going? Just come with me. Where are we going?" "To the moon. Obviously the den. Stop asking so many questions. Just thank me for getting involved." I might end up cursing the fact. "Look, I get you being upset about Shannon and pretty much every other woman you've ever spoken to, but did you ever think walking into it negative can cause it? Try to be at least nice to someone before you meet them." She apparently had mistaken my discontent with her as that of distaste toward this mystery person. We walked into the room and the woman was sitting there about as neatly dressed as any churchgoer could be. The woman stood to shake my hand. "So when do you want to go out?" she asked me.